Good morning. I'd like to actually start by thanking Cari-Med, but I'd also like to congratulate Cari-Med because this sort of talk to people who are not yet 60 has been a dream of mine for some time. We think of aging as something that happens at 60. I don't want to burst your bubble, but you all started aging the day you were born. And it's very interesting to me, oh, the TV has gone off, all right, fine, no, it's come back on. It's very interesting to me, I have nephews, and you know, I've gone through my life with people not wanting to age, until the day my nephew said to me, Auntie, I'm 3 months away from 16. And we counted down to 16 very anxiously. At about 3 days before, I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, Jake, what happens at 16? I'm a big man, I get my driver's license. That's aging. So this morning, I want us to think about what is aging and what's healthy aging. And we're starting from that point that you're all aging. Some of us have aged into the 60s, but we're still aging because we want to get to 70 and 80. But let's look at some of the risk factors, some of the lifestyle choices, let's not use changes, and how do we maintain function. Professor Abel spoke to the pharmacists who have a role in society. I am speaking now to the people in the room who happen to be pharmacists. So let me speak to you. Whether we like it or not, the choice of aging is death. So it does place greater responsibility on older people to maximize opportunity. I will share with you, those of you who are still nervous about it, when we did the first survey in 1989, we only had 75% of our population over 60 functionally and mentally well, doing all kinds of things. By the time we got to 2012, that number had increased to 92%. So suffice it to say that most of you in this room will get into these later years still able to do everything. Professor Abel said I was to let you know the causes of suicide in the elderly. It's actually not pension. It's actually chronic illness. It is people who feel they have now become dependent. I was speaking to somebody last night, and she said to me her mother got sick about a month ago, about 6 weeks, a month ago, perfectly well until then. Developed an arrhythmia, has had strokes, all sorts of problems. It's been quite a roller coaster for the last 6 weeks. And she said to her daughter yesterday, it's okay, I'm ready to go. I'm now a burden to all of you, and it's time to go. I suspect, Prof, she's one of the ones that has stopped the medication unknown to everybody, because clearly the warfarin, etc., is going to keep her hair a little longer, and she now is totally dependent on people. So that's one of the reasons, and it's an important aspect for you as you look to prevention for the older people in your families. So these are the words we use, and please note we don't have an age on them. We talk about healthy aging, we talk about successful aging, we talk about aging well, all these kind of things. But it's all about our lifestyle choices. The current emphasis on the increasing levels of obesity, particularly in children, is a topic that I fear for, and I suspect that by the time that cohort in 40 or 50 years, when I won't be around, but some of you will, when you look at how well they have aged, you will probably see a lot more of the chronic disease than we're even seeing in the current group of older people. Because we lay the foundations and we build on them for healthy aging throughout the life course. So, what is aging? It's about growing older, growing old. Old is not, you see, old is not a 4-letter word. It's a 3-letter word, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. but it's the master of wisdom, and it's one of the most difficult chapters to grow into. So it's our life changes as we grow older. We want to be 21 because we've come of age. Nowadays we want to be 18 so we can vote. Then I think we start dreading aging when we approach 40. I keep hearing about this terrible, I'm hearing yesing and I'm hearing knowing. So that 40, I have many, well, not anymore because we're all 60s, but I remember that. Some had this great party for 40. Some actually went away because they weren't acknowledging that they were now middle age. And God forbid, menopause, cessation of sex, all kind of dreadful things were going to happen with midlife. Doesn't happen. So we now talk about young old. Those that are not yet 60, those that are not yet 70, we've gone from a average life expectancy in the middle of the 60s of 65 to somewhere around 78 now. But what's even more interesting, I think, is that life expectancy at age 60 in Jamaica is now 20 to 25 years. We now have well over 1,500 centenarians in this country, and those are the ones that made it to the voters list. The ones that were not able to be numerated, and there are several of those, are not in my 1,500. Every time we do a survey now, we find at least one. When we did the 2012 survey, and it's a sample size of 3,000, we found 5. So guess what? We're an aging population. Aging is not just about your gray hair and your wrinkles and your pot belly. It's very much about the things that Prof. Abel spoke about. And please notice that I do, in fact, have the spiritual on the diagram. We do consider it an important part. Look, I don't know where I would be without church as a backup service to my clinical, because loneliness is the #1 problem, not finance and not chronic disease. And I don't know where I would be without church, because when you get to about 45, 50, everybody, or no, all the women, men haven't found the same sort of passion, go back to church, and they become head cook and bottle washer. I used to have long arguments with Ernley Gordon, because he said, but my church is all women. I say, yes, and it's not just you drawing them here. They have to have something to do. They want to be in charge. One of my older ladies was in charge of the fish fry. And every time after this fish fry, her back was gone, everything. So we were into the medication and the physiotherapy, etc. So one day I made the mistake, and I really made mistake, of suggest that somebody else could do the fish fry. Right, Professor Abel, I got into trouble. You think I don't have the money to pay? You are the physiotherapist? But she felt important. Prof. Abel spoke about it, the self-esteem issues, the needing to be important. All of this is part of the aging process. So when he asks you to ask yourself, what is your passion? Also ask yourself, and when I'm 65, who will I have to talk to? We love our spouses, we may not like them. You have to like people to have a conversation. It's a question to ask yourselves. And therefore, this aging it suddenly happens to you at 60 because you haven't thought about it. So if you stop thinking about aging as getting old, but growing older, you will stop having the fears of it. There's your chronological age, the years you have lived. There's your biological age, how you feel. Now listen to me, you can get to 50 and feel very old, you know. All you have to do is go onto our medical wards. All you have to do is look at people coming to you to fill their prescriptions. And you wonder, how did somebody get so frail, you know, so pain? And then you have these 90-year-olds. I have 90-year-olds who are driving quite happily. And yes, I signed their things for the insurance agency. I remember one gentleman telling me, I only drive around Maypen, so it's okay, you can sign it. And when I said to his daughter, what does this mean? She says, because everybody in Maypen know him, so if him take a wrong street, they're going to show him which way to go. When my own father drove round down the Montego, down Barnett Street the wrong way, and the police stopped him and said, you're driving the wrong way. He says, no, it's a one way and I'm going one way. It's about accepting. And he was going one way, and everybody knew Doc, and everybody knew the cars, and not a soul was troubling Doc, or certainly not going to crash into him. So these are the things we want. But where I want to focus on this particular slide is that whole thing of psychological age. You're only as old as you feel. I am now 67, and I don't think I'm old. The government says I'm old and I'm going to contribute to the dependency ratio. The university says I'm old and I must go and retire and sit down at home and do nothing. I don't agree with any of them. So, like Professor Abel says, I found my passion. My passion is volunteerism and the garden. Everybody knows about me and the garden. And you'll find me out there of all hours of night and day. But it really is, take him seriously about the passion. The passion becomes the hobby and the having something to do later. And if it's crochet and those things, you might want to find a second one because the eye is going to get kind of dim. So I'm now into fairy gardens and little people all over my garden. So these are the things and I've said this, you really want to think about the biological and psychological. What's next? You know the most important thing about aging, and this is not true of a lot of things. You know you actually control it. Because guess what? You can decide what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to. You can decide, and I'm going to touch on it. You can decide what you put in your mouth, you know. And you can decide when. And I am not one, and when I get to that, I don't think you should stop the cake and the ice cream, you know. I just want you to cut it down. You know, there comes a point where the weight, after 40, I can't help you with the weight. The weight does tend to go on after midlife, and it don't come off quite as easy. Those of us who used to never care and know we could take off 10 pounds for any function, guess what? Midlife, that stops. But the most important thing I want you to leave here today with is that you control your aging process. You may not control whether you're going to get hypertension or diabetes because those are your genes, but you can decide if you're going to get the complications by being overweight and not doing any exercise. So aging does cause functional changes, but we can balance them. It causes slowness, changes in our responses to the environment. You know, have you ever noticed the older members of your family don't bounce back quite as well from flu as they did when they were younger? So get the flu shot. Cari-Med is very good. Cari-Med brings the flu shot in, and thank you very much for bringing it in a month earlier this year. My patients all thank you because they've already had their flu shot. So while everybody else is having problems, they're not. So look, there are things now. There's pneumococcal vaccine, there's everything. You don't have to have these stressors. So what's health? Health is really a state of physical, mental, and please notice that it's emotional and spiritual that's underlined. So it's really a state of mind. How many of you in this room have hypertension or diabetes or arthritis? I don't believe you, because there's much more, and the hands are not going up. Aren't you well? You're all here today. So it's really a state of mind. So health is a lifelong process, and you don't suddenly get sick at 60 or 70, you hear me? You don't suddenly get miserable at 60 or 70. Miserable, stubborn people get old. Don't blame old age. So you better look at yourselves when you're doing this inventory. Am I one of these difficult, stubborn people? Because when one relative is telling me that the patient in my office is stubborn or difficult, I will say to another, how were they at 40 and 50? And I invariably hear, same way. Nothing no change. But health is not static. So healthy aging is the process to achieve what you want, and what's the goal? The goal is function. When you are talking about making choices about getting older, it's not about whether or not you're going to have a chronic disease. It's going to be about whether you can climb into that bath on your own and whether you can reach your back, whether the arthritis is going to allow you to do these things. And if you can't do up the zip at the back, get a dress or something with buttons or zips or Velcro in the front. It's about adjusting and staying independent. It's not about belly aching about the fact that you can't do what you used to do. It's about changing your lifestyle to do what you can do so that you don't have to ask anybody for help. And this is your functional capacity. It is going to decrease a little bit. Just make sure you don't go down the yellow line. Stay on the red line. So these are the things, these are what I want you to think about today. I want you to think about obesity. I want you to think about your diet. How much salt are you adding? How much salt are you not adding? These are the things. Are you still smoking? Now, alcohol is there, but I will be the last one to tell you no alcohol. It's alcohol in moderation. And there are enough studies now to tell us how red wine and these wine help the cardiac vessels, etc. But seriously, it's really about continuing to live the life that you enjoy living with moderation. You know, there's one there, though, that I want to draw us to. And there's two. I think we tend not to recognize the importance of sunlight and what it does. Black people seem to think they can't get these skin cancers, etc. You actually get more because you actually go in the sun more. Now, when I was a child growing up in Montego Bay, we didn't have the kind of information that we have now. So, of course, we all were at Doctor's Cave every day, all day. I have several members of the family that are now paying the price for that. And one of the things we want to think about is unsafe homes. No, I'm not talking about gunmen and thieves. I'm talking about things like rugs that you fall down on and break this and break that. So it's about looking around to ensure that you're going to have quality life. So these are your lifestyle choices. How much walking are you doing? And I'm not one of these that advocates for the gym membership, because we usually go once and never go back, and the 3 months fee is wasted. Much better to use the steps at work instead of the elevator. Perhaps park the car and walk a little bit. Walk to get the paper in the morning, walk to do various things. The use of alcohol I've already spoken about. I actually do support the no smoking. I think that's something we need to do something about. Unfortunately, our last survey told us that men were listening to the no smoking message, women were not. And that there was some increase, and Professor Abel will support me here in the household survey of young people. It's the thing to do. So I think most importantly, there's a lack of motivation. Do you want, in fact, to stop doing what you're doing? Because you may, God forbid, have to give up a little bit of enjoyment. But you have to find other ways to enjoy life rather than sitting just smoking and drinking. So, we can't talk about wellness without chronic disease. Chronic disease is a disease that is long-standing. Unfortunately, by the time you get to 60, 70% of females are going to have hypertension. I challenge you to reduce that figure over the next couple of years, 20 years or so, by adopting changes in lifestyle so that you're not a statistic. So these are the chronic diseases. Let me tell you something. As pharmacists, I don't need to tell you. Between 1989 and 2012, we saw a 148% increase in diabetes. That's lifestyle. That's lifestyle. The level between 1989 and 2012 increased 148%. compared to only 47% for hypertension. So it's not just obesity, it's the choices. When we did this study, and we were in St. Thomas, Annie and them decide that they're going to take soup because we're having focus groups. So we must feed the people. Well, they called the office and they said, don't bring no soup. Bring money. We want patty. And when we were doing it in a church, by the way, the church was not even finished. They didn't even have enough money to finish the rending of the wall in the expansion of the church. I was looking at Kentucky Fry, and I was looking at a patty place down the road. So even out in deep rural, a healthy life choice was not an option. So these are things to think about. So wellness is a state of being in good health. It's a state of mind. It's achieved through supported lifestyle choices, but it's also enhanced by daily practice. Prevention is your key to wellness. Even if you get a chronic disease, prevent the complications. By the way, it's a good way to save money. The pensioners are worried about not having enough money. Well, make sure you don't get to pensionable age with a chronic disease that needs 10 or 12 drugs. That's a good way to save some money. So it's much easier, prevention's much easier, it's much less expensive, and everybody needs to see their primary care physician. I think one of the things that we don't do, and I get it all the time, people seem to think they know when their hypertension and their diabetes is out of whack. They don't. That's why it's called the silent killer. So you do need some sort of interventions in here. How many of you have had a mammogram in the last 2 years? Never had a mammogram. I'm seeing 4 or 5 hands. What you waiting for? You don't need it? Well, you're kind of young. No, you may not need it yet. But these are the items. How many of you have had a colonoscopy? How many in the room over 50 have had their colonoscopy? I've actually got more hands for the colonoscopy than I've got for the mammogram. These are things that become part of the aging well process. And how many of our men in the room over 50 have had their PSA checked? I want one hand. 2, 3, they're going up slowly. Have I made my case about the fact that you all have not bought into prevention? So these are the 7 behaviors. Exercising. Now, exercising actually means increased physical activity. It means walking a little bit more. A diet high in fruit, not smoking. Please notice the alcohol is in moderation. Getting adequate rest. Now I know that half of you can't because you're on the highway trying to get home. So I'm not sure, so we have to wait till after the roads are fixed. Because there's somebody at my office and I really feel for her. I don't know why she comes to work. It's 3 hours home and it's 3 hours. She's leaving home at 5 in the morning. So I feel the pain. But it's also coping with stress. And I'm crossing over slightly into Prof. Abel, but stress is an important factor. Now, he's going to tell you a little stress is a good thing because it gets you going, it gets the endorphins, etc. Too much stress is a bad thing, so you have to work out the balance. So we know the different food groups, we know that they contribute to health promotion, and believe me, I know you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I have to say it. There is nothing that replaces a proper diet. Yes, you take the vitamins, you take the various bits and pieces. However, a balanced diet is what is also going to set the basis for that. So the low fat, low salt, and we tend not to think about the liquids. The older we get is the less we think about the liquids. Well, we think about them and then we don't drink them because we don't want to have to go to the bathroom en route to wherever we're going. But these are important. please remember that we're changing Grandma's mantra. Because when I was a child, you weren't supposed to leave anything on your plate. And you were told about, in my day, you were told about the starving children in Biafra. Well, guess what? Food left on the table now does more good than that if you've already felt full. So physical activity, I know it's a bad word, and I know it's not a 4-letter word, but it really is a bad word. But unfortunately, our body needs it. So we're talking about various types of exercise. We're talking particularly the aerobic, but aerobic exercise alone is not going to do it. You need the 2-pound weights, you need to walk with them, and even if you've had a stroke, you can sit in a chair and move whatever parts of your body can be moved. But it is extremely important to work out a balance here. Those who like yoga, fine. Those who like Pilates, fine. Just do something. The mantra that we all say is, please get your heart racing a little bit. So yes, sex will fit in here as well. But we're talking about, 20 minutes. And when you're starting, you start with 10 so that you can get it going. Many of our musculoskeletal changes, the frailty, etc., are because we have allowed the muscles to get disuse, atrophy. Swimming is excellent for those with arthritis. But the benefits of getting and staying physically fit cannot be overemphasized. And you will each decide what is physically fit for you. We will not all be like Bolt running down the track. Some of us may have to run that track, but at least walk rather than say, since I can't be like him, I'm not going to do it at all. All of these activities will come. The decrease in your blood pressure, the increase in your strength. You won't be quite as tired. You will get increased balance, the falls. You'll also increase breathing, reduce depression. Exercise, physical activity is one of the best things for the reducing depression, especially since it's usually done in a group. You will see people walking in the morning, it's in 2s and 3s, and you have to control obesity. So these are your keys. Please get your physician approval first. Consider your age and lifestyle plan. Think of the activity throughout the day. Everybody uses the elevator at business places. What happened to steps? But you'll go and buy a stepper and put it on your veranda and say you're using the stepper when you have the steps in your office. Exercise at least 3 days, but most importantly, have fun. Stress. Stress is an important part of life, but too much stress is going to cause problems. Then you're going to get the depression. If you're depressed, there's no way, you're not even going to eat, much less eat properly. And if you get depressed, a lot of us, when get depressed, go straight for something with a sugar high. But too much stress is also going to impact on diabetes. And they're now linking it to cancer. We know stress is linked to mental health issues. Therefore, you need to look at stress and think what you're doing about it. Overload your role. Overload. Have you learned to say no? I'm not hearing a loud yes. How many times, I can squeeze that in. I can get it done. There's always Mr. Nice Guy or Miss Nice Girl in the office that you can always go to. Ensure rest and sleep. What about vacations? I know you can't afford them, and vacation is not the time to stay home and spring clean. I know Prof Abel has told you to get ready for Christmas. So a couple of those Christmas cleaning days need to be your days. A massage, forgiveness. When last, and we had this discussion before, when last have you sat down and reflected on baggage that you are carrying? Somebody you're carrying bone for, and just sit down and say, you're getting out of my head. I am going to let you go. Whatever you did to me is now forgiven. If not forgiven, forgotten. If not forgotten, forgiven. Stop carrying baggage around with you. You're not hurting the person whose baggage you're carrying. There are your church activities and there are your social gatherings. Limit your vices. You notice I didn't say get rid of them. We can keep one or two, but you can limit them. It's natural. You will all leave here with a program today, but you're going to relapse, you know. Christmas coming, you're going to relapse. You're going to overindulge. We're all going to do it. I'm going to do it. Every one of us in here are going to go somewhere and eat too much. For God's sake, don't have a heart attack about it. Just say, okay, January soon come. Everybody, you know, we want to change. The best of us want to change. Just think of your children. You give them a talking to, they don't do it, they do their homework every night, and then some TV program come along that is sweeter than the homework. We're all human. Don't be hard on yourself because you are human. Just say, okay, January. We try to change through trial and error. Don't have a plan. And don't worry about the person beside your plan. Your plan is to walk 5 steps. Theirs is to walk 15. 5 is what you're planned for. 5 is what you'll do. Youth is a gift of nature. Age a work of art. You're going to have to work on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Are we having a good time? Excellent. That was an excellent presentation. I am sure that we all fully digested the information. Now we need to start with the discipline. The discipline, which is the hardest part. But as you say, we'll wait till January. No, I'm just troubling you, Prof. Yes.
As long as you start tomorrow, slack off in December, you'll go back to January. Right. So you have November.
Right. Any questions for Prof? Questions? When there are no questions, that means that's a good comprehensive presentation. Oh, this lady is very hilarious. Lurleen, could you come and present Prof with that lovely orchid? Oh my, that's wonderful. Picture man.
Professor Shearer, on behalf of the entire team here at Cari-Med and Apotex, this is how we say thank you for a well done presentation.
Thank you.